Good afternoon. My name is Dan Graziano, and I serve as chairman of the nominating committee for Stonebridge Country Club. That committee this year consisted of 4 other members: Patty Small Carroll, Ellen Hannon, Bob Henry, and John Burnette. And I want to thank all of them for their hard work, which has produced this slate of candidates that we're going to introduce to you today. I'm happy to say that this is one of the most enthusiastic group of candidates I've seen in all the years that I've served on the nominating committee. They are Bill Burnette, seated in the middle here, Howard Nottingham, sitting immediately to my left, and Kathy Rushalk. You can see in the wide screen there, if you have that picture. They're here to be introduced to you and also to answer some questions. I'm going to posit some questions, but you as members also have the opportunity to ask questions by posting them through the GoToMeeting website. So if you do have questions, please feel free to post them. I know the candidates would like to hear from you, and I hope you would like to hear from them. I think it would be best to start with each candidate introducing themselves and telling us about their life and work experience, their history at Stonebridge, including committee service, and describing why they are interested in serving on the board. So we'll do this alphabetically. We'll start with Bill. Bill Burnette.
Thank you, Dan. I first was introduced to Stonebridge in 2013. I was down on a trip with some friends and took a look at communities and found this to be very appealing for several reasons. First of all, I thought it was very well maintained, and that seemed to be very important to us. So my wife Jody and I bought our first condo in Heatherwood in 2013. At that time, we were only spending 3 or 4 months at a time here, but as we spent more time, we found ourselves more interested in spending additional time here. Right now, we live in the Thornbrook community. We've been in our villa now for, I guess, 2.5 to 3 years. I have 6 grandkids, 3 daughters, 3 son-in-laws. I have been involved in playing golf. I have been involved in playing tennis, although I'm not playing tennis anymore. And I spent a fair amount of time in the fitness center. And I'm very excited about the potential concept of the community center, which I think is going to add to all of our enjoyment as time goes on. So I'm delighted to be here, glad to be a part of the team, and appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Howard.
Good afternoon. My name is Howard Nottingham. My wife and I first bought our home in Hawthorne in 2015. In the past 2 years, we spent the full season down here. Prior to that, we were back and forth between New York. We have 4 children and 6 grandchildren. We spend the off season in New Hampshire. I was raised in Indiana, have a BS and an MBA from Indiana University, both with majors in finance. I spent 38 years in the commercial real estate business in New York City, focusing in on Manhattan. I spent 3 years on the finance committee, led a subcommittee of the finance committee focused on the renovation and the finances of the renovation. I believe it is important to give back to the community, and I have the skills and experience to make a positive contribution as a board member.
Thank you, Howard. Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Rushalk, and thank you for listening in today. It's nice knowing we have some people out there who are interested. And I want to say, first of all, that I love Stonebridge. And I've been here 6 years. I'd like to say I married into Stonebridge when I married Paul Rushalk. And we are now full-time residents. I have a son in Indianapolis with 2 new grandbabies. So I've been on 2 committees. I've been on the Strategic Planning Committee and the Communication Committee. And I've been on other ways involved in Stonebridge. I was on the board for the 9-hole golf when I first came, soon after I came, and I was on the 9-hole board over at Vineyards for their 9-hole golf. As part of the book group, I've done some presentations, 2 different books that I presented, and I've also co-chaired the book sale 2 years in a row. From a professional viewpoint, I'm a psychologist, have been a psychologist for 30 years in the University Center, working primarily with students. And it's because I'm a psychologist that I think, or maybe I like people, and that made me a psychologist, but I like interacting with people. I like hearing what they think. I think it's important to be respectful, to hear all sides, to hear different voices. And so that's an important part of my wanting to be here. I like to say that during the pandemic, I got licensed as a psychologist in Florida, which speaks to my really going all out for something once I get involved with it. I was director of the counseling and health services at the University of Minnesota Duluth for 18 years. And during that time, my roles were administrative, advocacy for students, doing strategic planning, and also clinical work. And during that time, I was also on a board with the vice chancellor for student affairs. And for 6 years of that, we worked using the Baldrige Performance of Excellence framework. And for those of you who don't know that, which is most of the world, it's a framework that teaches how to do continuous improvement in an organization that is highly respected around the country. And so we did that for 5 or 6 years, and I was in charge of the program that we wrote every year to go for the Baldrige Award, and we got a silver one in the state of Minnesota the last year. What's important about that is not that we're going to have a program that's a formal program here, but it taught me how to think and how to look for ways of improvement. So I think you'll see that flavor as I talk today. And one of the ways you see it is when I first moved to Stonebridge, I was maybe here about 5 months. And I thought I would like to see their strategic plan. And so you may all know that our strategic plan is on the webpage. And so I went in and looked at it. And we have a very good mission and vision statement. We have a defined set of 5 values, and we have 9 or 10 objectives that I think the board and management has worked hard to develop. Correlated to that, management has defined or aligned all their operational procedures along with those objectives. So what you have is a very finely structured, consistent, and I think powerful governance system that we have here. So I love Stonebridge, and I really respect the governance system that we have and everyone that has put work into it so far. So it's my privilege to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I think many of our members would agree that including a psychologist on the board is long overdue. For next year and the year after, obviously, the primary focus of the board and primary focus of Stonebridge is going to be the renovation project, which our members overwhelmingly approved. However, before we get to that, I'd like to take some time to talk to the candidates a little bit about some other matters that they may be required to address in serving on the board. And I'm going to start with you, Kathy. We've experienced unprecedented turnover of homes in Stonebridge this year with an influx of new owners, many of whom are younger than our average age and who are still working because they can do so remotely. Unfortunately, the pandemic has constrained our socializing here, so there is some thought that we may need to be more creative in outreach to new members. Do you have any thoughts on what we might do to welcome new members and involve them in our community?
Well, first of all, I think this is a really important issue to address. And given the time that we're in, and also that welcoming members is one of the keynotes in our mission and vision statement. So, but I'm not going to give you an easy answer of how to do that. What I want to talk about is a process by which we could begin to explore it in more depth. I think it's a big enough issue that it's worth taking some time to make an assessment and to analyze it. And that would start with defining what we mean by welcoming new members. There's a continuum. Are we talking about giving them some pamphlets or giving them information? Are we talking about the other continuum, which would be more relational? So what do we mean by welcoming new members? Defining that and coming up with specific attainable goals so that we know when we have done that. And the second part would be assessing what have we done that has worked. We've certainly done a lot of things around here. And what have we done that hasn't maybe worked so well, or where are the gaps? Because if you address the gaps where we haven't worked as well, then you're more likely to get improvement. So then we can brainstorm possibilities. And one of the first things to brainstorm might be, what's the venue of delivery? Would you do it at the staff level? Would you do it at the board level? Would you do it at the committee level? Would you do it at the neighborhood level? And so there are pros and cons for each one of those, and all of those can be explored. What would be delivered? Well, you need to have your plan, what you want to do to welcome other people, to welcome the new members. And that needs to be specific, because with the number of people we have coming in, you can't have one person just doing it and just guessing how to do it. You want to have some consistency across all the people who are going to be working on this team, or however you define it, to work with the people. So training people according to what plan you've set up. And then you have to talk about who would do it and when would they do it. Two important things that would be part of this would be getting membership feedback. In this case, you may want to get feedback from people who've been here a year, or maybe you want to get it from people who are just moving in. What do they see as their needs? So getting membership feedback, and also doing some data gathering and analysis. So no easy answer, but I think it's worth putting the time up front to really get a good program.
Thank you. Anything to add to that, Howard?
Well, I agree with Kathy. I think it would be extraordinarily helpful to have a guide, pamphlet or a guide that would introduce people to all that Stonebridge has to offer, how to access it, what are the assets around the neighborhood, that type of thing. I think that'd be extraordinary.
Bill, anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. When the time I spent on the communication committee, this is one of the subjects that we discussed periodically. We do have more new people than I've seen here in some time, which I think is very healthy. So I think we need to look at all the vehicles that people want to be able to view information from. Make sure it's easy to access that information and make sure the information is accurate. I think it's particularly important for new folks because this can be a confusing place initially. So I think one of the tasks that we will look at next year from a communication standpoint is looking at all the vehicles that all of our members have access to, particularly those that are new, so that we can introduce them initially to an easy way of finding accurate information. And I think it's one of the challenges that we're going to have.
Thanks. This one's for Howard. Howard, you've served on the Finance Committee, and I don't think it's any secret that you're targeted to be the likely successor to Dave Harper as treasurer. Those are big shoes to fill. Without addressing the renovation financing issue, that is how we're going to get financing, are there areas where we could improve how we handle our finances here at Stonebridge? And do you have any suggestions for how best to accomplish such improvement?
Well, I tell you, the members of the Finance Committee do a great job in monitoring the financing and making suggestions for improvements. Stonebridge is well run and is in great financial shape. Dan asked me not to address the financing of the renovation, but I think the biggest challenge for the Finance Committee is to set up the systems and the monitoring to ensure that the money we're going to spend on the renovation is spent well and that it does not go over budget. I believe very strongly that we should do this renovation. We should implement the renovation and monitor to a budget, not a scope of work. That way we can deliver financially what we've promised to the membership. The club has never undertaken such a large renovation, and keeping it on track financially is going to be very important to the success as far as the membership is. The controls to manage the budget will be critical, and the monitoring of those controls will also be critical.
Thank you. Bill, do you have any comment on the finances?
I think the key to the financial part of the equation, which I think was one of the issues that we addressed early on when the vote, just prior to the vote, is making sure people are aware of where we are and where we're going and the status of things. So one of the tasks that I would assume, if that's the responsibility that I'm asked to cover, is to make sure we've got a simple way of communicating exactly where we are. In fact, I've actually put together sort of a progress chart. I don't think you can really see this very well, but if this is something that the board would like to implement, and we look at the different tasks, what the responsibility of that task is, where we stand with it, what the objectives of it are, and where we are in terms of performance. I think this would be a simple way of giving our members a snapshot of how we're doing. And then beyond that, we can layer it, say those members who want more in-depth information, we can easily lead them to it. So I think Howard's got a great idea. We just got to help him make sure we communicate effectively to all of our members in the way that the members want to get information, so that all the good work that the Finance Committee does is represented well.
Anything on finances?
I just want to underline something that Howard said, and that is the importance of monitoring to budget rather than to scope as a way of staying within budget. I thought that was great.
All right, Bill, your turn. You served on Communications and Information Technology Committee, and you have a strong background in those areas. Again, without talking about the renovations, is there anything you would like to see done differently, or anything we could be doing but are not doing in terms of communicating with members and in terms of our website?
Yeah, I think the website is clearly will be a focus for us. As I talk to different members, it's an area that I think they would like us to continue to focus on. There are three basic ways in which our members get communication information. And the website is one. The voice, which I think has been pretty effective, is the second. And the third is the specific and strategic emails that often come out of Tim's office. And I think when you look at how we handled the pandemic, and I know we may address this in a few minutes, I think that was very effective because it was simple, it was easy to absorb. You got accurate information and some direction for the members if they wanted to have it. I think that's the challenge that we'll have, is to take all three of those areas, the web, the voice, and strategic emails, and make sure that members get that information the way that they want it, in the way that is effective in how we do it.
Kathy, any comments on that website or communications in general?
I really like how you're thinking about charts, because visuals really, I hadn't thought of that before. Visuals really help me to see what you're looking at.
Thank you.
Howard?
My only suggestion would be to better utilize the text messaging system. I'm sure this morning, a lot of people would like to have had a text to know that there was a delay in the tea times, because they may not be on their email at the time, and a text would have been a terrific way to communicate that.
That's a good point. Thanks.
Bill, since you touched on the health updates and their effectiveness during the pandemic, how would you rate the club's handling of the pandemic in terms of restrictions and adjustments to schedules and that sort of thing? And yes, you can talk about communications again on the pandemic if you like.
Yeah, I don't mean to be too redundant, but I think it was effective. I liked what happened. I particularly liked that you could look at it very quickly and get a snapshot of what was happening. And I like the fact that there was reference points to further information. And I think some members just want to have the top level information. Some members want to have an in-depth look at it. I think that was a thing. I don't know if any of us really understood exactly how this was going to play out, and how much information people would really need. But if it provides easy access, if it provides a layer of information other than just the synopsis, I think that's about all we can do, frankly. And follow the guidelines that are published for the state and the county, which I think Tim and his team did a nice job of. So it's something I think we should continue to do. I think it was effective, and I think it's something we want to use again for other information.
Thanks. Kathy?
Well, I just want to add, I think they did a wonderful job in dealing with a very confusing situation. We had so many different sources telling us different things that it was an interesting role for management and the board to walk through. They gave us safety measures, the communications that Bill's talking about, and flexibility. We were able to tighten up, loosen up, tighten again, having to read where we are in any given moment. And the last thing I want to say is give a kudos to the staff for their creative programming. In a time where we were social distancing and very isolated, they were able to be very creative in some of the things they came up with to try to give us some together time. So I really appreciated all that they were able to do.
Howard, anything on the COVID situation?
Yeah, I agree. The club did a terrific job in limiting interaction and making sure that people were safe. I happen to believe that going forward, we're going to have to figure out how to live with this thing, because I think it's going to be with us a long time without disrupting our normal lives, but yet following the guidelines that are given to us by the CDC and the various health organizations. And I think that that's going to have to happen in order for people to enjoy themselves here and to enjoy the social aspects of this community.
Thank you. All right. Now the subject we've all been waiting for. I appreciate your holding off on this. Let's talk renovations. Based on the member vote, we're charged with completing the golf course renovation and substantial facilities expansion over the next 22 months. This is going to pose some significant challenges as we proceed. So I'm going to start with you, Kathy. Everybody is very excited, justifiably laser focused on the renovation process, and that's all well and good. But with your experience in strategic planning, you probably agree that we need to be prepared for what comes next. And we'd like to know what you think. In your opinion, what should we focus on so that Stonebridge can be ready to meet the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities after the last construction tractor leaves the Stonebridge gate?
You want to look at the end of the tunnel, right?
Exactly.
There's several things that could be addressed, and strategic planning has different roles. One, it keeps our eyes on the mission. The strategic plan is not just something for archives, it's a working document that we continue to work with regularly and updating it. We'll work on measurement of different kinds of feedback from different places, from members, from professionals, from other courses. So we continue to gather that. But the role you're talking about is the forward-looking role of what are we going to do 2 or 3 years out. One of the things that I think would be a useful effort is to look at community life. Community life has taken a hit, I think, during these last couple of years. I'd say in 3 ways. One is through the pandemic and social distancing. The second is difficult vote. And the third would be renovation, just how things are still not back to normal. But I do want to underline that I know there's a lot of fear out there because of the last renovation. This renovation isn't going to look like anything that you saw before. And if you saw Tim's notes that went out today, you know that this renovation is going to be very different. The club is going to be open. There'll be a lot of meeting spaces. There'll be gaming. There'll be dining. There'll be fitness, and there'll be maybe golf will be a little less convenient, but certainly you'll have opportunity to play all kinds of courses you've always wanted to play. So there will be other ways of dealing with it. But I would address it in the same way that I've talked about addressing the members, and doing a process to evaluate and look at it, defining what is community life and what goals do we have, what do we mean by that, and what do we expect? Our mission says that we are welcoming, that we welcome members now and in the present or in the future, welcoming members. What does that mean? The first one I talked about was the new members. Well, how do we welcome each other, and how do we have that in the community work? So that would be, looking at defining what it means, what are the goals, assessing what we have done, brainstorming into the future, all the things I said before. We want to get feedback from membership, from the staff, because we have a great staff who's been very creative in getting through what we've already been through, what they can do when they have all the new facilities. And also leaders in country club management. As groups expand, how do they change? How does community change? What are the signs of the community? So consider the what, who, when, and how questions, set up data. And so I hope we get an opportunity to look at this and look at what we could be with these new facilities.
Thank you. This question is for Howard. Howard, thank you for your service on the Finance Committee and on the small group Finance Committee that talked about particularly the renovation. As you're aware, our challenges over the next 2 years are clear. We need to stay on budget and on time. Given your background and experience, how would you help us prepare to handle possible surprise roadblocks that the economy, the weather, the ongoing pandemic may throw in our paths? None of us have a crystal ball of the future, but how can you help us to develop some sort of economic early warning system for dealing with contingencies?
Well, there really are two kinds of disruptions that you could run into. Some are catastrophic, like a hurricane or an unseen weather event, a pandemic that shuts everything down. You can't really predict, and you can't really protect yourself against those things. What you can protect yourself against is supply chain problems. If you put together the right team, which I believe we have, and you have the right architect and the right engineer and the right project manager and the right people monitoring those people who are staying on top of where the shortages are, how they're going to affect the project, what lead times are on issues, then there should be no surprises in this project other than the catastrophic. And there's nothing you can do to really protect yourself against a catastrophic problem. These people, when we have a problem, when we have a shortage, the architects, the engineers, and the project managers have to present us with alternatives. My experience is every problem you run into, you can find an alternative to, and in most cases, a very cost-effective alternative. I get a monthly newsletter that is from a major construction company in New York City that outlines everything that's going on in the supply chain and the shortages. I assume that our architects and engineers and project managers get something similar. These things are able to monitor. You have plenty, in most cases, you have plenty of lead time knowledge as to when they're going to occur, and you can find alternatives around them.
Good, thanks. Having been president of Stonebridge during Hurricane Irma, you're right. There are some things you can't prepare for. Hurricanes are one. Bill, thanks for your work on the Communications Committee and helping to explain to the members the features and benefits of the renovation plan. You obviously clearly explained it since they voted so much in favor of the plan. Now comes the hard part. Over the next 2 years, we need to deliver what we promised. With such a strong plan and a cadre of professionals to help us, we're confident we can get the job done. But one of the important aspects of the project is going to be keeping our members informed and excited about the project. After all, we are spending their money. Given your background, what kind of things would you suggest we do to keep members up to date and excited about the progress of the project?
Well, thank you. I think everybody that I've talked to is excited about it. I think they'd like it to happen sooner than later, and I think they would like to begin to see some progress. So I think it breaks down into 4 things, and Kathy touched on it. What are we going to tell the members? When are we going to tell the members what we told them? Where are we going to tell them? The vehicle by which we will communicate this information, and where it's appropriate, why we do it. And I think if you look at all the vehicles of distribution that we talked about, so the website, the voice, strategic emails, and Howard made a good point on potentially doing messages. I think that's the benchmark that every one of those communications needs to be able to address. What specific information are we going to begin to communicate? What the expectations of the members for what that information is, when they want to receive it, where they want to receive it, and why. And everything we do in the communications arena will either meet that requirement or be forced to meet that requirement in the future. I think if we do that, we'll get a membership that is aware of what's going on and a membership that then can buy into what's going on. So those are the things that I would do, and I think that's something that would be very important for the continuation of the excitement that we have with the vote for the renovation. Thank you.
So it sounds like the 3 areas we really need to focus on, you guys all have to get planning for what we do once the renovation is completed, anticipating any disruptions or bumps in the road as we go through the renovation, and keeping our members informed about how we're making progress. So I think your answers should have made everybody confident that you are the right people for this job. That's all the questions I had. I don't know whether we have questions from members.
We have not received any.
We have not received any questions from members. That being said, I'll give every one of the candidates an opportunity to sum up, if you will. I think you've made great presentations, and feel free to say what you'd like to say, and we'll kind of go in reverse order this time. We'll go in reverse alphabet. So Kathy, you can go first.
Well, I hope while we're doing the summary, you might think of some questions that you could go ahead and write in there, now that we can give you the time to do that. I just think we are starting with a wonderful community. And we have gone through rough years, and we have made some decisions to go ahead and to have some really great new possibilities. And I'm glad we have time to do brainstorming about how other things we can happen and change. And I also want to comment on that. I don't know if you all have seen the email that Tim sent out today about the new, about where we are with the construction plan. It really, between that and what Howard has said, I feel really maybe encouraged that we do indeed want to focus on staying on budget and staying the course with what we can do in the future.
Thank you. Howard, I think you're next in reverse alphabet.
Okay. I will tell you, I'm very excited about this opportunity, and I'm very, very, very excited about the renovation. Having been involved in some landmark projects in New York City, when you can change the face of what a city or neighborhood looks like. It is one of the most exciting and fulfilling things that you can do. And very, very excited to be involved in the board during this period of time. And they changed that.
That's what you asked.
In a year or two, but prospectively, I'm very, very excited about it. And I think it's a terrific project, and it's going to transform Stonebridge to be an even better place than it is to live today.
Bill?
I think this is something special. And someone asked me today why I was interested in being on the board, and I said, I think this is a very special time. Personally, a very special time to be a part of something in a community that we all live in, and to be able to represent the way that this has affected on our community. I think it's just a very exciting and very special time, and that's the reason why I would be interested, or have been interested in this, quite frankly. I think when my wife and I first bought here, it was right at the time when the last renovation was starting. And we weren't spending that much time here, quite frankly, because we still lived in Colorado full time, or essentially full time. So we didn't go through a lot of excitement and frustrations over the last renovation. But this one, we're going to be here. We're going to be a part of it. It's going to be maybe the last really growth thing that we'll do in our lives, in a sense. And I'm just very excited about being able to share with the community what this will mean for all of us. So I genuinely appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody send anything in?
Nope.
No. Okay. I want everybody who may still be on or who watches this later on, because it is recorded and will be available, to remember, even though the election is uncontested, we need a quorum of at least 240 members in person or by proxy for the annual meeting. If you plan on attending the meeting in person, we urge you to still complete and submit your proxy so that we can be sure of meeting the quorum requirements. Finally, I'd like to thank the three candidates. I think you did a terrific job, and I hope a lot more people get to view this since it will be recorded. Thank you, and wish you luck, but you shouldn't need that.
Thank you.